Good morning. Happy full moon in Aquarius. It's a good one. It's lit today. So, full moon, always about release. There's a but we'll get to it later. The full moon is about release. It's about the ending of, or not the ending. It's the pinnacle of a cycle where things start to wind down. However, there are certain powerful alignments that lead to different orientations or different interpretations of the traditional, like, standard model. And this is anything but the standard model. First of all, it's Aquarius. Aquarius is anything but the standard model. It is literally the thing that is at the cutting edge, the very beginning of understanding. It's like, think. So when oh crap, I'm going to get the timeline wrong, but all right. So when Einstein was coming up with the theory of general relativity in the early 1900s, I think the early 1900s, he was at the very edge of human understanding of physics. That was Aquarius. And he embodies Aquarius perfectly, like his hair and the like crazy nature of how he does things, and his untraditional ways of relating with other humans, particularly the opposite sex, and he embodied the Aquarian archetype of doing things differently, and to move forward differently and to have a different idea of the future. So the Aquarian archetype is that. It's the very cutting edge of development. It is the very seeds of evolution as we move through. And there are different archetypes. So we have evolution and revolution. And these are both similarly the archetypes of Aquarius. And one is not the same as the other. And I'm going to touch on that just to throw some philosophical nonsense in later. But the full moon in Aquarius, we are removing from ourselves, removing from our behavior and our understanding the limited notions of what has already become. And we're moving into new things. The new moon is usually the thing that we attribute to new developments, but the Aquarian full moon is the releasing of things that hold us back from new. So we have the full moon in Aquarius, and the full moon in Aquarius happens at precisely 11:25 a.m. Pacific time this morning, so later today during my class. So if you're going to tune back in, it's a good time to get in some a very powerful meditation that we're going to do. The full moon is at 11:25, and it's at precisely 27 degrees and 15 minutes of Aquarius. So it's in the last few degrees of Aquarius. And let's see here. The moon actually moves out of Aquarius like 4 p.m., about roughly 4 p.m. today. So we've got just a few hours of this kind of pinnacle of energy with the moon still in Aquarius while we're in this cycle of shedding away the old. That is opposite the sun in Leo. And the sun in Leo, at the same degree of Leo, is in this archetype of creation and presentation and a kind of development of courage within the self in context of the collective, right? How are we confidently projecting into the collective and Is the collective receiving that? Is it bolstering and enforcing that? And that's the Leo archetype. Now, the archetype of Aquarius is a confidence in self as a service to the whole, not as a reflection or as a function of the whole, not as something that necessarily relies on the feedback of the collective, but that relies on the internal guidance, the Aquarian notion of understanding your true essence of self and projecting that into the world as the service to the collective. Aquarius is the collective. It is the community. It is friends and communities and there's another word that's not coming to me. The group. You know, we have this very prevalent thing in society over the last several decades that have developed, and it's the group identity, right? And it's the right idea, kind of, but it has not been done well. It hasn't been done right at all. It's been co-opted by people that would have us. It's been co-opted by people that would have us under their control. So we have to pay attention to this very carefully. The concept of identity politics is absolutely haywire, and it's not fucking good for humanity at all. The individual must be in their true essence projected into the group to enforce the power of the whole collective. And that must happen on each individual scale, each individual person, each individual self and soul and spirit has to be in this place of individual harmony, serving the collective harmony. So, with that said, we have the full moon in Aquarius, opposite the sun in Leo, and with that sun in Leo, we have Mercury in retrograde. Hi. We have Mercury retrograde is just right there with the sun. It just connected exactly with the sun yesterday and is moving still backwards further into the sign of Leo. There we have the understandings of our communications that are reliant on external affirmation, reliant on external affirmation. The ways that we communicate to save face or to impress or to be, I don't know, like all the weird shit that we do in our communication that's just for the good receipt of other people. It doesn't need to be that way. We have to, obviously we have to agree on a way that we communicate and exchange information and all of this, but it can't be the only thing that we think about. We can't only think about, how is this person going to receive this, or are we going to offend anyone or whatever. We have to be able to speak clearly and honestly and with absolute truth. Speaking of Aquarius, truth is inevitably the most important part of Aquarius. So we have Mercury moving backwards through Leo, letting us revise and review our ways of speaking that affect other people, but that we over-focus on how it affects other people. So what are we doing to save face? What are we doing to save ourselves from embarrassment or to save ourselves from the discomfort of someone else not liking what we said? It's like we have to be able to say things, otherwise the world doesn't work. The whole of modern society has been built on the notion of being able to speak what you think. When that began to be understood, that was when the world started to advance. And no, we won't go that way. So we have the full moon in Aquarius. We have that opposite, the Sun and Mercury in Leo. Now, the fun part about this is, the next fun part, it's all fun, but the next part about this, the only other aspect being exacted during this full moon is a square from Uranus, or a square to Uranus, technically. Technical sidebar about astrology. When you're talking about which planet is aspecting which planet, you talk about the faster one moving first. So moon moves faster than Uranus, therefore moon is squaring Uranus. Anyway, Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, so this full moon cycle is ruled by Aquarius. Is ruled by Uranus, rather. So the full moon cycle is ruled by Uranus, and this square to the full moon amplifies that strength. So the Uranian quality of this whole 2-week cycle before we lead into the new moon in Virgo is flavored by, is governed by fully the power of Uranus. And it's not governed in a passive or kind of flowing way. It's governed in a kind of, it's almost invasive. Like I don't know if that's the right word. I'm going to come up with something better maybe, but it's a very it's a very inserted kind of way. It is the edge of the blade that moves into and causes an awareness of itself. So we have Uranus in Taurus, which has been actively and passively and kind of retroactively revising the realms of our traditions, tradition being Taurus, over these last, what's it been, 6.5 years or something? No, 7.5 years almost. Somebody fact check me on that. The Uranus in Taurus has been there for a while. It's been revising our traditions, and it's been prevalent in society, the things that we have been dismantling, for better or worse. And that Uranian frequency challenging this full moon in Aquarius. Now, this is what brings me into the difference between your average, run-of-the-mill full moon, which is shedding and releasing, and the nice, like, kind of love and light notions of what a full moon is. It's like it's a time to shed all of your unhealed emotions and traumas and things. I'm like, not this time. This time it's very different. Granted, you can still work on all of those things. You can move the energy how you need to move it and release what needs to be released, but full moons are also a symbol of harvest. They're a symbol of having that which you have planted come to its absolute fruition. So the things that you've been building and working upon, the work that you've been doing, and work comes in a couple of minutes again, but the work that you've been doing, the things that you've been trying to accomplish, the self that you've been trying to realize in the world is brought into a greater light through this full moon frequency. So over the next 2 weeks, focusing yourself on what parts of you have become more visible, what of your specific talents have come to a real, tangible state, understanding your own individual talents, your own individual, your eccentricities, your strangeness, the things that make you truly unique, whether they're strange or not, the things that make you uniquely you, that you feel, understand, make you truly you. They come to bear in this. So the full moon in Aquarius squaring Uranus, so Uranus is interacting in this 90-degree angle with both the moon in Aquarius and the sun and Mercury in Leo. So it's challenging this whole dynamic of self and communication and projection and presentation through the Leo frequency, and the kind of I had a little note here that I liked yesterday. There we go. So the shedding away of the things that do not make you yourself, the things that overshadow or shield or mask who you are, the ways that you speak that take you away from your true self. There's a wonderful notion which I can't claim as like an original thought by any means. It's been around for millennia, but the concept of speaking, every time you speak untruthfully, you take a part of yourself away from you. You remove a part of yourself. You move farther away from your core essence, from that thread, the golden thread which leads through time, through each individual consciousness. That perfect, pure thread of self is further hindered and blocked and compressed and absorbed by each moment, each utterance of untruth. So when you're saying something, to be very careful about how you say it, to understand that if it is something that is untrue, it hurts you, and you can feel it, you understand it, you know it, even if it's in the little back recesses of your mind where you just like, you say something that isn't quite true, and there's a gentle kind of weakness, an almost imperceptible loss of strength in that moment. And the habit of that is just getting used to that losing of strength. So we want to be as honest and clear as possible. We don't need to save face. We actually need the opposite of that. We need to be resolute in our individual capacity, in our individual truth, in our individual in our true individual self. Individual truth is the wrong word. The individual truth is almost an oxymoron, because there is never mind. Again, philosophically thorny direction. Let's move on to the rest of what's happening today. Another powerful thing, speaking of squares, speaking of challenging aspects, we have all right, for one, the sun and moon are exactly opposing one another. That's what the full moon is. And then Uranus is at almost exactly the conflictual angle. So there's some energy on either sides of the exact angle, but the closer you get to the exact thing, the stronger it gets. And we're like, it's close, right? So we got some power here. The Uranian frequency pushing us into our evolutionary path, regardless of what we do, and only with more strength if we decide to do it honestly. Another almost exact challenge in the skies, we have Venus in Virgo, Saturn in Pisces. And just as a kind of sidebar here, neither of them is comfortable. We have Venus, the planet of love and affection and connection and social interaction and collective behavior, or social behavior. The sign of Virgo, which is very individual and straight and stern and logical and prudent. It is very proper, right? Which can be a kind of Venusian sense, the proper nature of things, but Virgo is not concerned with necessarily the beauty of being proper. It is just concerned with the purity of being proper. So Venus in Virgo, it's not very comfortable. Venus would much rather be in the opposing sign of Pisces. Saturn in Pisces is not particularly comfortable. Saturn would, well, it's not in its worst place. It's not out of place necessarily in Pisces. It's in a mildly harmonious place, but it's like it's earth and water. It is the kind of muddiness. There's an unformed potential, which Saturn is very much about, the formation of things. So Saturn in a watery place, the footings are loose, the boundaries are unclear. Venus in this very strict and unfree place of singular focus and self-development. These two opposing one another, interestingly bringing a harmonious frequency to each other. The harmonious frequency of Virgo being carried to Saturn by Venus, and vice versa, the Saturnian principle bringing the energy of Pisces into the mix. So they both gain something from this challenge, but it's definitely a challenge. We have relation and discipline coming into conflict with one another. So are we letting our relationships get in the way of our best development, or are we allowing for our best development to feed relationships? Or, there's other ways to say that, but that's how it rings true to me at the moment. These two opposing forces currently are also being challenged by other things. Because why? Because why not? Mars and Jupiter, these two came together in Gemini very recently, a few days ago. And that will and that ability to just move forward without worry, without hesitation. Mars and Jupiter coming together in Gemini, there's no room to be slow or hesitant or doubtful. Now that can be challenging because you can run very quickly in the wrong direction, but you can also run very quickly in the right direction. And there are plenty of right directions. There's probably less right directions than wrong ones. So use your discernment, which is where Saturn comes into this whole interplay. Neither Saturn in Pisces nor Venus in Virgo wants to move quickly. One wants to move meticulously and with very much assurance that it's the right direction, and the other just wants to build things little by little, piece by piece. So we have all of these interplaying energies, and the challenge between Saturn and Venus is further challenged by the frequencies of Mars and Jupiter wanting to run very quickly. Now, how these all harmonize is the ability of Venus to feel the right path, to feel the right direction, and to understand what the body can understand about what is really moving us forward. Saturn in Pisces connecting us to the energy of spirit, the energy of God, through the Piscean framework, and helping us to understand the right direction in that way. And both of those keeping things at a kind of relative speed that is developmentally tangible and sustainable, and Mars and Jupiter removing us from doubt. So these three come into a very powerful challenge that helps us in this next developmental phase, because, I was going to get into the philosophy of evolution and revolution, because we have to circle back to the Aquarian frequency. The three challenging things between Venus, Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter gives us the power to move forward without doubt. So it's a powerful thing. If we have enough faith that the right direction is the right direction, then we will move in that direction. The Uranus, the Uranian challenge to the full moon in Aquarius. forces evolution. And if the difference between evolution and revolution in the Aquarian frequency, in that Aquarian framework, evolution is not technically, but for the sake of this particular discussion, a line. It's a line. It's a path. It's a direction, right? Revolution, the word itself says what it is. It's a circle. It revolves around something. Maybe it's a great idea. Maybe it's a need for something. The revolution happens in the orbit of a necessary thing. It has to happen. It has to become something that is seen from all sides. That is why it must be a revolution. So everybody read Camus and try to understand what he's talking about, because he's so like cyclical, which is perfect because he writes about the concepts of revolution in the book The Rebel. And it's very clear through his evaluation and through any kind of like conscious logical evaluation of revolutions throughout history that those exacting revolution are not exacting change. They're removing that which needs to be changed, and all too often they just disappear at the end because they're not built for the steady development after change is made possible. They're just there to make change possible. And again, all too often they just get replaced by someone who does the same thing but with different stickers, right? With different emojis. We get different shit going on. It's like the same. You get a dictator and then a dictator and then like a fascist pseudo democrat or what, all this like shit that happens in politics, but also in like familial life. We try to move things in a cyclical way. We change something dramatically, and that change is great, but it doesn't really change anything because we get back to the same point, and whoever had the energy to make the change possible is not the one who's supposed to carry things forward. Otherwise, they'll just do the same things the other person did. Anyway, so that's that. Aquarius, understanding the difference between revolution and evolution. You can revolve around a good idea, or you can carry that idea forward. You choose. And use that with your own self. Shrink that down into an individual framework. We get back down into the individual understanding of things. Find a good idea within your mind and decide how to carry it forward, and just have faith that the path is the path. And that's that. Anyway, happy full moon. Satnam.